Hey everybody, welcome back to our Dean Russo inspired dogs. And for this portion of the project, you can use any material you have, whether that be colored pencils, crayons, markers, oil pastels, watercolor, it can be anything. Here's my example of my completed one. Here's another completed one I did with tempera paints. And I am going to show you in today's demonstration how I use value. So I'm transitioning from light to dark with my colors. And I will then be adding patterns inspired by Dean Russo. So I'm going to begin by using watercolors just so I can get a lot of color on the face of my dog portrait. I'm going to start with some yellow, and I'm going to begin blending the yellow into an orange after I clean my paintbrush. Now, you can blend any two colors together as long as they are touching on the color wheel. We call these analogous colors. Since orange is next to yellow, I am able to blend them together very nicely and create a nice change of value going from dark to light. So make sure you take a look at the color wheel before you begin blending colors together. And since red and yellow make orange, I can blend the two of those together. I'm going to paint the nose a darker purple. Begin adding this purple throughout my painting. Throughout the nose, I am going to start adding some blue and lightly fade it into more of a turquoise blue. But notice I'm painting very lightly. I'm not putting a lot of dark colors. I'm doing this so when the paint is all dried, I can go in with markers, colored pencils, crayons, and make some really cool designs. Now, you can also do some designs with crayons or colored pencils before you start painting. But with how I'm painting the head and the ears, I'm first going with the paint. When it all dries, I will go back into it. When I work on the body or the neck, you're going to see I work a little reversed. I'm going to actually do some designs before I start to paint. You can do it any way you prefer. I'm just showing you the two different options. While the head is drying, I'm going to start adding some Dean Russo inspired designs into the body. Coloring pretty dark, so I'm pressing down hard with my colored pencil. I'm going to make these little, I don't know, they're like a teardrop shape. He does a lot of these, especially with yellow. So I'm going to do several of these on the body just to start taking up some space. Now I really want you guys to pay attention to the Dean Russo designs piece of paper that I have to the left, because I created those designs while looking at a lot of his artwork. So the designs or patterns you may see me use here are ones that were inspired by very common shapes and designs that he uses over and over. A lot of the times too, he creates a lot of series of dots. So you're going to see I do a lot of dots, as well as those teardrop shapes put together. So I'm going to allow the face to completely dry with the watercolor paint before I go up there and do anything with my colored pencils. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to start painting around some of the designs I just drew on the body. I'm not going to go over top of it because this is colored pencil. I'm going to really take my time and go around those shapes. So if you're using colored pencil, I really want you to take your time and paint every area around your designs. Now, if you did this with crayon, as you've remembered with projects in the past, the watercolor paint will go right over top of the crayon. So you can try the watercolor wax resist with this project. I just really wanted to use colored pencils when I did my designs, so that's why I went with this option. Maybe with dark colors of my colored pencils I could paint over them, but yellow would not be a good choice to paint over top of. I'm making sure I fill up every single speck of white paper on my painting so it looks really neat when it's all done. Yeah, you can see here I'm going over my colored pencil a little bit with the red paint. It's really not going to show up too bright. But if you have crayons, go ahead and make some really cool designs so you can paint right over it. Clean up my table. I'm going to put some watercolor paint away because I painted mostly everything I needed to paint. Now I'm just going to start working with the designs in the dried areas. And I can do this with colored pencils, only if the paint is completely dried. Same thing goes for markers. You can probably go over top of the watercolor paint with markers, but it has to be 100% dry. So here I'm going to go again with this like teardrop shape that I see him do very often. I just want to show you what happens if you do have oil pastels. Oil pastels may show up a little bit brighter, so I'm going to do a series of dots, especially in yellow. I'm going to show you can also do it in crayon. I really love using white oil pastels. They show up really nice on dark colors. And here's an example of me just using colored pencils. I am pressing down pretty hard though, so it does show up. Those are kind of like sun rays. And I'm not going to stop adding little designs until I feel like my entire dog portrait is filled up as much as it possibly can be. So I'm really not leaving a lot of empty areas. And again, if you don't know what designs to do, take a look at the example on the left that I have provided for you. Or go back to the Dean Russo slideshow and look at all of his beautiful paintings. Look at every little section of your portrait and try to figure out what looks empty. What can I add, even if it's just a couple little dots, filling up your space. So I want you to overwhelm as much space as you possibly can with these little designs. And they're quite simple to do. We're just talking about circles, squares, rectangles, little teardrop shapes. Now, when you're all done, you have to think about the background. We're not just going to leave it white. In this example, I painted it black. This one, I'm just going to cut it out instead of painting the background. As you can see, my other example, I painted the background yellow. I really want to have some contrast between my color of my portrait here and the black background of the paper. So if you do have a piece of paper, you can glue it down, just like that. Let's just pretend this is glued. But you can see it really stands out from all the color having contrast with the black paper. Here are my two examples. Have fun with this. I can't wait to see how they turn out and really try to fill up that space.